Let's stay with health matters and look at the Northwest. Remember, there was that preliminary report which has been tabled, and it was looking at what happened and what are some of the decisions and the circumstances that led to babies, newborns being put in cardboard boxes. Of course, this is a story that drew quite a lot of public reaction, and the MEC, of course, talking about a leadership deficit in that particular hospital. But let's speak now to the MEC himself. He joins us live now. That's the North West Health MEC, Madoda Sambatha. MEC, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. A leadership deficit, the transfer of managers to other health facilities. What about what happened prompted this decision?
Well, thank you very much for hosting me. What the preliminary report says is that managers of the facility must be made to account formally to the Department of Health. As we speak of today, from the incident that occurred last Saturday till now, we don't have any formal report by managers as to what had happened and what were the reasons and what have they done as management. Worse, the incident occurred on a Saturday. They had a meeting on a Monday. From that meeting, they even did not visit the same ward. The only time they've gone to the ward, it's when the province sent an investigation team there and when the MEC was there. So based on that, we're saying that there's a glaring lack of responsibility of management. And the report points to them as to who must account for what.
Does
so individually...
Pardon me, MEC, for coming in there. Pardon me. Does this include the CEO?
The CEO is included in the 5.
All right. So let's talk about
it's 5 managers.
5 managers, and then the CEO is part of that.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about then this decision to transfer them to another facility when they clearly have not even done something as simple as file a formal report. Is this not a call for much more serious action than just moving them?
No, in this instance, if you deal with the procedures of suspensions guided by national resolutions of the bargaining council, it gives you 2 options. You either suspend a person and let the person be based home and paid. You do an investigation, you charge if it says charge. Or you precautionary transfer the person because you can ship the person and have the person being utilized elsewhere whilst paid until your investigation comes out. We opted for the latter, that instead of them having to be suspended because there's an investigation, they're paid staying home. That must not be done. They must be precautionary transferred until the investigation comes out with results as to simply what has happened and what has been their role. So in this instance, we're opting for the latter also, with the element of having a very high level of shortage of managers at that level, because when we take someone from another hospital, place it in that hospital, that other hospital would have a gap. For now, is that a temporary measure for investigation? And of course, in terms of the law, that investigation cannot go beyond the 60 days.
So is DENOSA on board with what has just come out from this report and the subsequent question thereof? And I ask you this because of what I'm sure you've seen them say about the, some of your statements as well as the action that has now taken place.
Well, today I received the report, met with management, and then met with unions. The meeting with unions was then joined by employees of MPH. So DENOSA was part of the meeting with unions, and all unions that are organizing it in health were available. Here, it's an issue of when the report says Sambatha must account for what happened on the day, then you have no option but to ask Sambatha to account. having to ask Sambatha to account does not mean you have found Sambatha guilty. What unions have to do is to wait for their members to bring to them letters of their precautionary transfer and the contents. Based on that, they can then engage the employer only when the report comes out and says Sambatha must be disciplined, and then we then prepare a process to discipline that particular person. As to their own views, I think that on this matter, I am acting on behalf of the public, the 4 family members of the 4 babies that were placed in card boxes. I am acting on behalf of government. We're also acting on behalf of them that whenever there's an incident, there must be accountability by people who are employed as managers, because we pay them money of managing.
Yeah, and I wonder how far this acting will then go, MEC, particularly when you say you're acting for the public. This hospital, when really one checks some of the reports around it, has had issues for quite some time now. In the past, of course, suggestions that, in some reports, there were worst possible conditions ever seen at a health institution where people are supposed to be receiving medical assistance. There were also, of course, protests just after some senior nursing officials were suspended, and there was also some concerns around resource issues. How are these issues going to then be resolved once and for all? Because one might argue that the putting of children in a cardboard box is a symptom of an even bigger problem.
Well, in terms of resources, we've also approved a deeper investigation separate to this one, to check as to what has been the problem engulfing the hospital holistically. But in terms of resources, in this instance, there's never been a person from the hospital who requested for money to buy additional cribs and incubators, and that person was refused because there was no money. It has to do with how quick are they dealing with management. Also, because of what we know, as I speak with you, the hospital has a budget for additional 100 beds, budgeted for by the provincial government. As we speak with you, the hospital has a budget for renovation of the kitchen. But as we speak, it's the only hospital in our province that in 6 months' time, it has managed to appoint 77 nurses. So when everybody accuses people of not appointing nurses, they did. But even on COVID contracts, when COVID contract appointed people were released, 43 of those that were released for COVID contracts are already back in the hospital working. The issue is no moment should be spared where a mistake happens and people are unable to explain that. Look into this thing. Something that happens on Saturday is not reported to the provincial government until when we see a circulated photo on a Thursday. What do? The next Friday, the MEC is already in that hospital. From that Friday, there's an investigation team. The next Tuesday, the MEC has already released preliminary findings of that and an action, which means on our side, had we knew on Saturday, on the day of the event, this could have been intervened on that time.
Yeah. MEC, thank you so much for your time. Let's see then what the final report says and see how best then issues at this hospital are being resolved, because if they are not even sounding the alarm about some of these very big issues, then it means there are serious issues there, and this is a crisis waiting to happen. But let me thank you for your time. That was the North West Health MEC, Madoda Sambatha, of course, talking to us about that preliminary report into that investigation of course, the babies who were put into cardboard boxes.